Hey everybody, Pat Mesidi, 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. And I was going to be doing a reality check on Joe Biden just to show you how incredibly inept and how mentally this man is beyond any capacity of leadership, especially when it comes to leading the Western world. I mean, yesterday he says that Putin is losing the Iraq war. The other day he got in front of the Indian Prime Minister and jokingly said how he's been selling secrets, military or whatever others. But of course it was a joke. But there's so much going on in Australia, and I want to segment this little by little. We all know politicians are corrupt. We know that. The problem is we know it and we keep voting for them because we don't have an alternative. Well, today, the one that Scott Morrison, the illustrious Christian leader who led us in a series of lockdown, the only prime minister in the history that shut down the church, leave that one alone, Mr. Scott Morrison, who proudly stated how Gladys was the gold standard. Do you remember that? The gold standard. Well, it's been proven that she's now basically a rusty pipe. Gladys Berejiklian, today, been revealed she was, by ICAC, found guilty of, and I quote, serious corrupt conduct. This is a woman that locked you down, punished the people of the western suburbs while she left the beaches open in the eastern suburbs. Kids couldn't go to parks. Kids couldn't have fun. And she should know better coming from an ethnic background. She betrayed the very people. Her boyfriend, Darryl Maguire, said, and I quote, according to the text they sent through, that she might be the premier, but he's the boss. Gladys is found corrupt. But, as we know it, guess what? They're not going to prosecute. They're not going to prosecute. Now, if that was you or I, you'd be prosecuted. If that was the average person, you'd be prosecuted. And they said she broke the rules but didn't break the law. Can somebody explain to me the difference? I'm at a loss. You see, there's one standard for you and there's another standard for them. Today I want to talk a little bit about this voice that we're supposed to have, and I want to talk about the corruption of the Labor Party. Or let's call it, they're allowed to break the rules. Katie Gallagher, she broke the rules. But you can't call it misleading Parliament, even though it was. You call it, well, I knew. No, I didn't know. Oh, yeah, sorry, I knew. I lied. I blatantly lied to Parliament. But a corrupt Albanese, bully Albo, because that's what he is, doesn't call out Katie Gallagher. But what he does, he has begun a rather conspicuous, extremely similar strategy to what we went through 3 years ago. Do you remember when people like the big supermarkets, Coles, Woolworths, you can't enter, you can't shop, you can't work, because that's our policy. Well, guess what? Now, Albo, conspicuously, similarly, has recruited BHP, all the football teams, Coles, Woolies, and everybody else in the virtual signalling with this voice campaign. Now, we don't have any details what it is. We don't know what's going to be in it. And they maliciously attack you. A prime minister who's supposed to unify the nation, promised to end corruption, a new time, is doing the same old, same old. Mr. Albanese, Do you think the Australian people are that dumb, daft and stupid? I'll leave that one alone. But when you've got TV stations, news media, big companies forcing you, bullying you to make a decision you don't want to make, or if you don't go with the narrative, we're going to call you names. Mr. Albanese divided this country when he called people like me and you and anyone that dares go against his mark on history, the voice. You're a bunch of chicken littles. I thought we were Australian citizens. I thought we were the taxpayers that pay his salary. I thought we were the taxpayers that pay for this idiotic, divisive, vilifying and racial thing called The Voice. I thought we were the people that were the elected people and they are our servants. No. You're a bunch of chicken littles. That's what you are. Oh, and of course, a bunch of colonizers. A bunch of colonizers. Now, let me remind you that we are not a racist country in this country. We're not. We're great people. How do I know? I'm of ethnic origin. Sure, we, as kids, we'd call each other names and things like that, but we were big enough and smart enough to get over it. But now, they're even passing bills to silence you. Let me just say this. The new bill before Parliament, the misinformation and disinformation bill being passed, that they will fine big tech companies if they spread misinformation. So, let me illustrate. Those of you misinformed people that believe that a particular medical procedure didn't stop transmission, didn't stop the spread, you were called a misinformist. Hunter Biden, spreading the rumor of Hunter Biden, that was misinforming. And according to this new bill, if people like you, mark my words, see, I told you guys, you all thought this was over during COVID. That was the gateway drug. That was a gateway drug to push any agenda, because the government tested the resilience of the people of the Western world and the whole world and found it lacking. They tested the conscience of people and found it lacking. They tested the power, and I'm going to go there, of the church, and they found it lacking. Now they know they can bully you, vilify you, work with the big companies, and they threaten to punish the big techs for this voice. I thought we, as I said, were the Australian citizen paying taxes. I thought we were people that had a free choice. This is no longer the lucky country. You see, this new misinformation, disinformation bill, let me read you who is exempt. Excluded content for misinformation purposes means that any of the following: content produced in good faith for the purposes of entertainment, parody or satire. Professional news content, that means Channel 10, Channel 9, Telegraph. Content produced by or for an educational institution accredited by any of the following: the Commonwealth, the state and the territory. In other words, any education system of the Commonwealth, state or territory is exempt from this. But not you. Oh, not you. No. You got an opinion? You are a misinformation spreader. Watch this. Content produced for an educational institution accredited by a foreign government. This is all written in there. I'm reading it straight out. Content produced by a foreign government or a body recognized by a foreign government as an accreditor of educational institutions to substantially equivalent standards as a comparable Australian education institution. So a foreign government, an education institution of a foreign government has more rights to spread information than you. Watch this. or content that is authorized by the Commonwealth or state. This is exactly what Putin and China are doing. Oh, I forgot. Albanese loves them. Dan Andrews loves them. I'm sorry if I get fired up. They love the Chinese. Trudeau loves it. Now Trudeau's banned you from going to a naturopath. Now, folks, here's the thing. Professional news content means any content produced by, basically, the Australian Press Council standards of practice, the rules of commercial television, the rules and code of conduct mentioned in the Australian broadcasting. So the ABC can get out there and spread things like the genocide thing that she said the other day is still going on in Australia. What a lying piece of work. We don't have genocide in this country. How dare they? And your tax-paying dollars are paying for it. This is the bill they are passing right now. And if Peter Dutton and the rest of Parliament doesn't stand up, if we don't stand up, see, you all thought this was about an injection. Never was. And I kept ranting and raving and screaming and yelling. I call it reality check now. And I'm still doing the same. People are not waking up. Do you realise, and this is where I need your help, I have been shadow banned. I can't grow my social media platforms because of what's happened. That's why I need you guys to go to Mercedes.com links and join all our social media platforms. Because we were supposedly spreading misinformation. And by the way, one of the guys that I was shadow banned for was a gentleman by the name of Robert Kennedy Jr., who's running against, I can't remember, I fall up the stairs Biden. Albanese, the proof of his corruption, and I'm going to call it corruption, is he's selling us out. Every day he's bullying you. Calls you chicken littles, calls you racists, calls you spreaders of misinformation. Every day he's lecturing us and bullying us on this voice. It's the only thing he's interested in. People are losing their homes. Our pensioners can't afford to turn heaters on. People are not affording groceries. People are struggling to pay the rent. And all Albanese, pocket-lined Albanese, who's got so many properties, it's not funny. And by the way, the new flight path across Sydney goes over all those people, those people out there in Liverpool and Fairfield, all those people out there in those areas that vote Liberal. But where he lives, there's a curfew. Oh no. Albanese, one day, I tell you what, you push me far enough. Actually, I'm going to hold back. I was about to say something I'm going to regret. Just remember, Albo, you're Italian. And just remember, the Italian community is very small. Actually, we're very large. But the Italian community, Mr. Albanese, he doesn't care about your grocery bills. He doesn't care about overspending. He's too busy pushing the voice. I want to remind Australia of something. Do you remember Kevin Rudd? Do you remember his thing? Sorry. I want to remind our Indigenous and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, we said sorry. You know what we never heard from the Indigenous community? Listen to me very carefully, Australia. We never heard, we forgive you. Generally, when someone says sorry, a person of any kind of moral compass would say, I forgive you. I accept your apology. They never did that. And they're still not doing it. So sorry wasn't enough. Elton John said, sorry seems to be the hardest word. We said the hardest word, but it was never enough and never will be enough because they have an insatiable desire for punishment, punitive, reparations, pay the rent. That's what it's about. That's why Albanese will not tell you what is going on. And if any of us are dumb enough, stupid enough to vote yes, we deserve exactly what's coming to this country. You will be imprisoning your children and your grandchildren. We're already spending billions of dollars. But sorry was never enough. Have any of you, talk to me in the chat, said to people you're sorry? And generally the response should be, well, I forgive you. It's okay, let's move on. No. Not with the leftist, woke, punitive people like Thomas Mayo, the architect of this. It's never enough. Treaty, handouts, lining the pockets of the indigenous elites. That's what it's about. When I sit down and watch these people behind Albo, I'd like to know one thing. How much are you getting paid? Who's lining your pocket? What associations are you aligned with that you're skimming off the top? I just want to know. And then Albo says, you don't pass it, I'm going to pass it anyway. Oh. So you're going to go and spend a couple of hundred, 300-400 million. Don't confuse us with the facts. He's already made up his mind. You see, he doesn't care about your cost of living. He doesn't care about your freedoms. He would probably be prepared to lock you up again if he has to. He's a bully. An absolute bully, and he's surrounded by bullies, the mean girls. Just remember, this guy's back is covered by the very people he should be dealing with. I've got more time for a Peter Dutton who will deal with a Mr. Van than a corrupt Albo who wants to control media, just like China, just like Russia, just like all of these other places, wants to control your votes. Oh, the Labor Party will do that. Have a look at what Gladys Berejiklian's done up here in Queensland, moving the borders. You see, Albo's obsession is becoming and will become our emotional, spiritual, and mental incarceration. That's what's going to happen. I don't hear him dealing with the financial mess we're in. He's too busy trying to outdo Whitlam and Hawke and Kevin Dudd, his hero. That's what he's trying to do. He wants to write his name in the legacy books. And let me expose what he said this week. If not now, when? If not under this prime ministerships, then who? We need to speak up. And we need to do it in love. You can be fired up, believe you me. I have no problem. Listen to me very carefully. I have no problem recognizing our Indigenous brothers and sisters in the Constitution. Absolutely none. But it stops there. That's it. Because this insatiable appetite for misguided justice is merely racism in reverse. Just have a look at countries like South Africa. And I know I've got a lot of South African friends here. Have a look. Have a look. I'm telling you, if it wasn't for the colonizers, the immigrants, you wouldn't have enough money to even pay for The Voice. You wouldn't. Lydia Thorpe couldn't be paid a wage if it wasn't for the colonizers she so vilifies. Albanese wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for the chicken littles that pay his overpriced salary. Albanese not only is a bully, but he hides. I'm going to close with this. He's hiding by blaming the RBA. Now, I did an interview, and last night we couldn't cope with the amount of people we had on the Zoom with Mark Boris. So I'm running a replay this Saturday. Mark blew the hinges off the door with what's happening with the RBA. I mean, I'm not going to get into it all. If you want to be part of it on Saturday, it's on Saturday again. I'll put a link here. Mark just really, he pulled their pants down, I'm telling you. And if you missed it, you missed it. No, I won't be sending out replays. I'm not doing that. If you want to do it, you've got to join the Zoom. There will be no replays sent out to anybody. Not going to happen. Not going to be posted up here. No way in the world. It's a closed format. You want it? There it is. Mark will be on there. We're running it on Saturday. If you missed out, honestly, folks, you missed out. You really don't care about your financial world. You really don't. And I know I'm being straight, but that's a fact. You don't. Otherwise, you'd educate yourself and you'd find out what's really going on. And you'd listen to a guy who's fighting out there. The RBA has one lever. But Albanese is pulling all these other levers and setting off bombs in our economy, in our racial divide. This man is going to go down as the most divisive prime minister in history because he's already done it. He will go down, I believe, in my opinion, as one of the most two-faced, two-sided politicians in history. He's going to make Scott Morrison look like a nice guy. Because what he's doing through the climate change cult, what's happening with his protection by the Teals and the Greens, he's like a mafia don that you can't get to. But let me assure you, Mr. Albanese, none of those guys end well. You owe too many people too many things. I would love to show some proof. One day. And I know you can disqualify this as some rant of some crazy guy, but I've seen with my own eyes. I have. Albo's not clean. And the people that protect him are not clean either. And I'm not standing here trying to be some moral policeman. I'm talking about how this country's being run. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how this country's being run. When a leader is more obsessed in name-calling, vilifying, stacking the odds. When a leader is not transparent to tell you what's in that thing. When he's not transparent to tell you who the architect of it was. When he's not transparent to tell you the cost of what it will cost us. We do not need there is one Parliament of Australia. We don't need an unelected, appointed, select, hand-picked Indigenous Parliament in this country. Well, I started with Gladys. This misinformation, disinformation bill ought to be a concern to every one of you, and you ought to write to your local leaders and tell them you stand against it. Saturday, there's going to be a replay of my event with Mark Boris that we had yesterday. As I said, many people couldn't get on. I keep telling people our Zoom call only has a certain amount of capacity. We expanded it and we still didn't have enough room. You don't want to miss it. Learn from a guy who's really standing up for what's going on. And it's time we really wake up, Australia, because the way this country's going, we're not free. We're not the lucky country. I'm going to close with this. This is about as lucky as you being insured with Amy. Unlucky you're with Amy, I'd say. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, folks, God bless you. And I'll put a link here in the chat for the replay on Saturday. It will be on, I think, at 11 o'clock Saturday morning. And it goes for a few hours. Mark was absolutely brilliant yesterday, as well as my other guests. Unbelievable. Please like, subscribe, and share. Please follow us on our social media platforms, masidi.com